right, everybody, I am back now. As I promised you, I told you I was going to have on people that I know, that I find interesting, that I think are funny, that I think you will enjoy. And this person I actually know. He's a writer for television, a comedian, a director, an author, and he was the owner of the club where I worked first. He was literally owner of the club where I started, and he was the first person to actually give me money to tell jokes to drunk people. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest is Mr. Steve Young.
Did I really pay you?
Yeah, fooled you.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, there are some mistakes we make in life, and some we learn from, some we don't.
Hey man, it doesn't really matter. I cashed a check 35 years ago, so it really doesn't matter. You know that.
I bet you it was $35. Was it $35?
It had to have been because that was a. I mean, to be honest with you, I was still 17 when.
Wow.
Yeah, I was still 17 because I started literally 2 months after I turned 17, and then a few months later, you had me on one of those Thursday shows, if I remember correctly.
And I think Thursday. I don't know what that popped in my mind, and so you started at the same age Todd started.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's right.
And let's be honest, when you're 17 years old and someone gives you 35, because the thing was, I didn't know that you guys were going to do that. I literally took the show. I forgot who I was working with, but I just thought it was going to be an extension of an open mic night. So I didn't think much of it, except I was just happy to get there. And then all of a sudden, I don't remember whether it was you or Kevin that gave me the money, but I'm going, what?
Well, first of all, $35 is what they're paying headliners now. So it has changed. And paying $35, I'm serious, on an off night, they don't do that anymore. And you could have been working with people like, I don't know exactly when you came along, but Tom Wilson, Wayne Cotter, Paul Tompkins, Todd Glass, they all worked the Thursday night shows too. So, it certainly wasn't considered, you had to be good to be able to get a slot on Thursday because I held my money very tightly.
Yeah, well, the thing about it was what I didn't know was I didn't know how much you guys paid on the weekends, and then you guys booked me on the weekends, and I was like, whoa.
I'm telling you again, what I would pay MCs, and remember, we used to have like 4 people on a show, and so now typically it's about 3. But right now, what they're paying headliners might be close to what I paid opening acts. It's pretty amazing. It's really, unless you're a draw.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because I was always wondering about that because I know that when you ran the club, and for those of you listening, I started out in Philadelphia. Steve's club was in Philadelphia. It was the first club I ever played, called the Comedy Works. It was at 126 Chestnut Street in Philadelphia, an A room. And for those of you outside of the United States, what an A room means is it's the top club or one of the top clubs in the area, and you get people with big, gigantic, they had specials and lots of TV credits, and those were A rooms. I know people outside of the country won't know what the hell I'm talking about. But this is what I wanted to know, because back then, when you would tell people that you were a comedian, it was a big deal. They would go, "What? You're a comedian? Really?"
Yeah. Yeah. It was rock and roll. I mean, at that point in time, and I can't believe you're old enough to have been there then, but because I still picture everybody as they were back then, and I'm the only one that still looks the same, except for getting rid of the mustache. But the idea back then, the comedy was rock and roll. All we had to do was open the door and we were packed. We had a big room. We sat 325. And that's pretty big room for comedy. And those people who came there, because it was fairly new, we were sort of on the back of Saturday Night Live becoming really big. And people want to see live comedy. And the live comedy we provided were not only the top people in the business, but because Philadelphia was such a discerning audience and a big room, the local guys had to be good to be on.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the people who came out from outside Philadelphia were kind of in awe of, first of all, they loved the room. Second of all, when I had Eddie Murphy, he was already on Saturday Night Live, and I didn't have him close because Meyer and Young, Bob Meyer and Bob Young,
Mm-hmm.
the comedy team, were better than him. We had, Wayne Cotter would MC, and Wayne afterwards did he had his own show, and he, was always on Leno, and he did Carson and all that, and he was an MC.
Mm-hmm.
So, the level that you had to be at that time was still, no matter where you were on the lineup, you had to be good.
I tell comics that I see now, new guys, about how the comics in Philadelphia were killers. I tried to explain to them, because if you played Philadelphia and you went someplace else, it literally was too easy in other places, because they demanded so much in Philadelphia that, if you didn't bring the goods within the first 25 seconds, you were a dead person.
Yeah, I remember the first time we had a bad guy from out of town. I worked on a recommendation out of the guys that had the East Side Comedy Club in Long Island, and I worked on a recommendation, and he really did poorly. I was dying. I mean, that was the first time, and it might have been a year into the club, where I booked somebody that did not do great, and I was cringing. I had literally walked outside because I couldn't take it. And from that point on, for that weekend, I made him be the first act on after the MC.
It was worse to bomb. Thank God it never happened to me. Thank God. Always had great shows in your room. But the thing was, it was so physically big with the high ceiling that when
Right.
a person bombed, you could literally hear people. I remember waiting. Somebody was emceeing. I was next. Whoever was emceeing was not doing as well as they should have. They were a good comic, but it was an off night. No reason to mention names. I heard somebody walking to the bathroom. I could hear a conversation in the bathroom while they were performing.
Yeah, well, that was when was that when the stage was there, because I could hear people peeing in the bathroom. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty close. But we had a night that Jim Carrey was there, and the sound system went down, and he had to do the whole show in that big room without a microphone, and he killed people. It was amazing. If you've ever seen Jim Carrey in person, his act is just, he throws himself into it. He overpowers the audience, and they would laugh and shut up really fast so they could hear the next line. Laugh and then shut up really fast to hear the line. That was an amazing evening, and really just showed, how well, how good he was, but and still is, obviously. But those types of nights. I mean, if it was silent, it was very silent. But here's the thing: because the walls were kind of cement, when they laughed, that place rocked. It was like a roar of laughter, because it bounced off the wall. So obviously, comics loved it.
I still have tapes of my weekend shows, some of my weekend shows there, and I was trying to explain to people that it was less than 400 people in the room.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's not 1,500 people. There's like 300 and something people there.
Yeah, it was
but it's
great.
loud.
Yeah, it's great place. I still have a lot of those tapes with me. I probably have a tape of you too. But the idea is that the sound that emanated there almost was if today you wanted to record an album, you would not have to mic the audience, because the roar was so loud it would come through your mic on stage.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to explain. I'm like, they didn't have a mic on there. It was that loud. Now, what made you? Because I know you're a writer. Did writing come after the comedy club, or were you always doing that?
Well, I was kind of always right. I mean, I was working as a stand-up too, so I
Hmm.
was writing for myself. And any time a comic came in town, or even the local guys, you still want to. In effect, you hear them and you'd say, "What about this? Why didn't you try this?" And people. I wrote for Todd Glass. I wrote for Meyer and Young.
Hmm.
And I wrote for myself. So that I was doing, but it wasn't until I went out to Los Angeles that I started writing scripts. I
Hmm.
mean, in Philly, I was writing sample scripts to send out to LA to try to, get an agent and then therefore a job.
That is an interesting, and it's a powerful jump, you know, to leave Philadelphia or the East Coast and then go 3,000 miles. I know from personal experience how difficult it is because, in many cases, I mean, did you have any contacts out there at all?
Well, keep in mind, all the comics that worked
Hmm.
for me, I tried to develop a relationship with them.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, when I say it was rock and roll, when people came into town, that working at the club was like not only was it like a family, but it was like a party the entire time you were there.
Hmm.
People were making each other laugh. And actually we were, including me, kind of young,
Hmm.
and so it was so much fun that you got along with people. I remember a comedian who really went on to do a lot of writing named Marjorie Gross.
Hmm.
And Marjorie probably gave me the greatest compliment. We were watching the show from the balcony, and she turned to me and she said, "You don't seem like a club owner." And I thought that was the greatest compliment I could get. Because everybody was kind of peer, no matter who came in town. I mean, if Jay Leno was there, he would sit up in the office and everybody would be talking, and there was no, or we'd go out afterwards. I remember finding Stephen Wright had to go on, after the show,
Hmm.
which was kind of odd because Stephen didn't seem the type who would go out to a club looking for women, and there he was. He got there before us. But
Hmm.
the idea back then is that when people came in, it was we automatically became peers with each other. And so when I went out to Los Angeles, look, I managed Bob Meyer and Bob Young, Meyer and Young, and they went out there and they did fabulous. I mean, one of them was the executive producer of Roseanne. The other one, Boy Meets World, and Dinosaurs, and many Sybil, and many other shows. Plus, I would call people and see like Bob Saget or Paul Provenza or people like that to see, can you get me to this agent? But actually, I got an agent through a comedian. I can't even remember his name right now, but a comic who was actually on Carson when he was like 13 years old doing stand up. I forget what his name is,
Oh, I know
but
you're talking about. I don't remember the name. Yeah, yeah.
he put my script on an agent's desk. I was in New York at the time, and this agent called me and said, "I don't know how I got this script, but it's really good, and I'd like to go out and try to sell it." It was a movie script, and that I didn't know that agent, so that was really just happenstance because it was a comedian that I think Joy gave my sister gave him a slot, and so he was being very nice, and he put that script down, and I got a call, and that was the first movie script I had where there were producers going all around town trying to sell it. So yes,
That
the answer is yes and no.
yeah, it's no because the reason I say this because obviously I went out there. I didn't think I knew anyone until I went to the club. And then you're walking and you're going, oh, I guess I do know people here because but the people that were from the area, Philly and all of that, even when they moved out there, they kind of stuck together and looked out for each other. And that's a good thing that you were so good to the comics because, I mean, I'm not going to mention any names, okay? But I know a few other people that would have gone out there and based on the way they were they treated certain performers would not have been met with open arms, as they say.
I don't know. Everybody was pretty good, and then you're right. Now you came out obviously later than the first level of Tom Wilson, Judy Toll, um, Meyer Young, myself, Wayne Cotter, um, uh, and Paul Provenzo. We sort
Mm.
of did stick together, and I don't mean we went out all the time or anything like that. But whenever there was somebody had a get together, everybody would get coming over. And I understand that worked with the next level, which are like I guess like you and Paul Tompkins and
Hmm.
was it Matta, John Matta,
Yeah, John
and
Matta. Yeah, and Adam McKay.
right a few exactly a few people who went out there. And again, it became another. I guess it was a whole community that was moving out there, and then they became their own community out in Los Angeles or at the clubs.
I was wondering about this. The whole idea of, because like I said, I started in 1986, January of '86, and it was still new. Stand up. When I started, you were established and you were already drawing big crowds. I mean,
Right.
I
Well,
would show up and
yeah.
it was sold out every weekend.
The first day we opened, it was we were surprised. We didn't staff it right and all that stuff. We weren't expecting it, and the place just immediately sold out. I keep saying rock and roll because it was, we were. I always say medium-sized fish in a medium-sized sea in Philadelphia, but we were. I remember Meyer and Young who were on TV all the time with Evening Magazine and doing TV, and they said we didn't start getting recognized, even though we were on TV every week. We didn't get recognized until we were at the Comedy Works. And then keep in mind, 12 to 1,500 people are seeing you every week, and the word of mouth was so great that we would constantly be turning away people and selling out every show.
You want know what is absolutely hilarious? When I started doing weekends at the Comedy Works, between Second and Market and 15th and Market, no one would let me pay for anything.
Okay, well, then you did better than me. Now, does that including the women?
We're having the technical difficulties here. It was just a really. But what made you start a club? I mean, like I said, stand up was new when I started. What year did the Works open up?
80.
Oh, good lord! So you preceded me by 6 years, clean. So what in the
Yeah.
blue hell made you decide to open up a comedy club in Philly in 1980?
Yeah, because we didn't have any place to play. We would do weekends at Kavanaugh's restaurant
Mm-hmm.
in the University of Pennsylvania. We played in places that we should not be. We were at discos where people did not want to see us, but they happened to be a room. And I always said I was one of the comedians who could wear a three-piece suit and talk. So I was sort of the businessman. Not that I wanted to be, but I could do it. And, we needed a place to play. And I basically talked to Jim Tyoon, who owned the Middle East restaurant, which was on the first floor, but we were on the third floor, into letting us try it out. Because he had a room that, a big room, but nobody came. He was doing plays or something like that. And I talked him into letting us do it there. And then it blossomed into a full business. And, by a year later, I also had a club in Resorts International, Atlantic City. I had it in Wildwood and Bristol, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
with Joy and Jim Little running that. So it just expanded really on its own. It was, I was more energetic back then, so it was more. I remember going to Atlanta to try to open up a club, in Boston to try to open up a club. So at that point in time, it just seemed like the seed was already set. So let's just I could sell it based on the success we had in Philadelphia. So in actuality, it was looking for a place to play. Including me, so I could have a place to play, and so it became a business.
Yeah, and I used to love playing Bristol. Joy put me in there all the time.
Yeah. Joey's birthday today.
I miss her. I really do. God
Yeah,
rest her
me
soul,
too.
man. Yeah, it was. I just remember those. I just remember the phone ringing. Steven,
Yeah, that's really funny.
Steven, are you available the 15th and the 16th? Yes, I am. I'll see you then. Click.
Yeah, she was good. Everybody loved her. She was really good. She was good, and she really worked it hard. I always said, like I was the face of the Comedy Works, and she was the heart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's I still I still think about her. Especially if I see an ad for and they had the same phone number that they had back then.
Yeah, well, Kaplan isn't that creative to come up with anything new. Pretty much the same thing as the ad. What was that? 1980, I think 5. We opened it there. I'm not really sure, but it was it was about when we were starting.
Yeah, to show you, because to show you how young I was when I got booked at the Comedy Works, Kaplan used to have to pick me up at the train station.
That's funny. That's really funny.
And take me back. No problem. I'll take you back.
But he probably had to pick you up and Ralph Harris up and Ramon Harris and anybody else who was coming from downtown.
Yeah. I just had Ralph on the show a little while ago. We were talking about some other stuff. Yeah, it was hilarious. Now I want to ask you this because now I know after the Comedy Works, you go out to L.A. and you're writing now. Okay, so now the comedy's here, and you're still doing stand up.
I was a regular at the Comedy Store, yes.
And so now the writing section of your career starts. And did you feel any kind of culture shock when you moved to Los Angeles? Because Philly guys, East Coast guys, South Jersey guys, and then you go out there. I know it felt different to me. I felt like I was in a different world when I went out there. Just the culture was so different. I loved it, but I definitely felt culture shock when I was curious because you were into the writing section of it. Did you feel any kind of culture shock when you went out there?
Kind of the opposite. When I got there, I said, "This is where I belong." And to this day, I have a son that lives out there, and with his kids. But when I go out to visit, as soon as that plane lands, I go, I'm back where I belong. I mean, I was comfortable right from the beginning. Before I started working, it was just, from the weather to the Dodgers to the people that I knew from Philadelphia in comedy, and also I guess the ladies. So all of those things, plus other events that basically I consider. I mean, I got sober in L.A. too, and I pretty soon after I arrived there, and that wasn't that I was a drunk or anything, but my liquor was free wherever my clubs were. So, so out there, it's a big. I mean, it's almost like networking if you belong to AA. But I also got sober out there. So all in all, that was the connection that I had in LA was more than the connection I had with Philadelphia, even though I was born and raised in Philly.
I had to teach myself to speak slowly.
You're right. You're absolutely right. People knew you were from the East Coast.
Oh my goodness! I had people literally what you're seeing right now is this where the speed here. I had to train myself to slow down to this, and now this is how I talk. Because I got tired of people staring at me like they were high because they had no idea what the hell I was saying to them. Hey man, could you repeat that, buddy?
Oh yeah, it was a mile a minute. I was a mile a minute, and in terms of anything I did, especially I had my own radio show out there, and when I did that, you have to be talking all the time. You know, you might be on the air for 3 hours, so you sort of get used to talking, and then you're talking on top of your talking, and so it's just more and more. So, yeah, it was hard. It was hard to get used to the pace out there, which was a much easier pace. And I've lived in New York too, which even it speeds you up even more.
Yeah, I spent a lot of the '80s in New York, and that the same way you felt about Los Angeles, I grew into almost a Los Angeles guy because I was out there from '93 to 2000. Yeah, I was there from '93 to about right before 2000, right around there.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time in New York, so yeah, but I just slid right into New York. That was easy. That took no effort. You know, just showed up and right into the clubs. San Francisco was
we went to New York before LA. It was when we were still in Philadelphia, and in fact, before we opened the club, we would drive in during the week to the Improv or Catch a Rising Star to get some spots. You know, before we actually had our own club, and then we would go there because, you know, we paid people, so they loved us coming there. You know, it was at that point it was 3 clubs: the Comic Strip, Catch, and then the Improv. And we would come in, and we were like stars because we were auditioning the top names in the business. You know, and then we would say who we were going to book, and it was pretty amazing, the access that we had to really the top talent. And a lot of guys would not play any place else. And when I say any place else, any place outside of New York, but they would play our club. Gilbert Gottfried, Ronnie Shakes, Eddie Murphy would call me and say, you know what I want? You want me to come? And I'd say, come on over. You know, it was New York was a great place too, but it wasn't a place where I developed as a performer or a writer. That was out in Los Angeles.
Yeah. Now, how did you? I mean, so because I know that you direct, you write, you produce.
The only thing I directed was my own stuff. I didn't direct anybody else. I did direct some short films that were more. You know, what do you call when there was just they were industry things. So at that I was mainly a writer, and I had no interest in directing. I directed because I would have ideas, and I wanted to get them out there. So that was the only reason I did that. Was
that the Ovids? Did you write that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I read the magazine where Ovids was calling everybody, you know, the Jewish mafia, the gay Jewish mafia, and they were trying to hurt him. And I said, God, I could just picture that as the Godfather. And somebody said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, if I did that, because it was about Michael Ovitz, people would say, well, you'll never work in this town again. And I thought to myself, well, that's great. People who are not hiring me now won't hire me later. Yeah. So what kind of threat was that? Yeah. So we went and did it, and that was amazing. When I did that, the calls that would come in from, the head of studios, not so much that they wanted me to do anything there, but they wanted to tell me how much they enjoyed that, and I'm talking about some of the people I mimicked in the movie, and it became like a cult classic. Hollywood Reporter and Variety reviewed it, and it never played any place. They reviewed it only because we had delivered it to all around town. Never played. We were asked to put it in the theaters because they wanted to see Michael Ovitz be mocked. But I could not get the approval to use the Godfather music, Mario Puzo, and I could not get the approval to do it. So therefore, to me, the music was so important for the story that I just said no. But anyway, that's the things that I did because I wanted to just do them.
Did you hear from the man himself?
That was the only person I didn't hear from. I didn't hear from Ovitz, but I heard from every all the studio heads, the Spielberg people, all of them were contacting me. When they contacted me, I was like, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble," because we talked about it in the film. And no, they were just saying, "We were peeing our pants." It was pretty cool. It was a cool time, and that was right at the time that I tried to sell my family on eBay, and when I did that, that exploded, and we were on the Today Show, and so that ended up at the Today Show and many other shows, and we got to pitch that all over town. So these things that I was doing that were really just goofs. They were just, hey, here's a stupid idea, and you do this stupid idea like trying to sell your family on eBay for real, and all of a sudden it becomes a pitch that you're going to try to sell all over Hollywood. And I mean, it was just all those things you could do there because you had a way to get it out. I mean, we didn't have Twitter back then. We didn't have Facebook or anything like that. So everything was pitching directly to TV shows, directly to radio shows, to newspapers, etc. And it was kind of easy to get attention.
Were you interested in? I mean, you're doing freelance with your scripts, correct? Freelance.
Well, I had agents. So I mean,
what I meant by that is, I mean, you weren't on. You didn't want to. Would you want to be on the staff of a sitcom?
Oh, I was.
Yeah,
I was on staff of sitcoms, and I freelanced when I wasn't working. Yeah, oh, sure.
Yeah,
I want to be on a show that you not only do you get a ridiculously high weekly salary and free fruit, but you also every time you write a show, you get an extra $26,000, and if they reran, you got an extra $13,000, and I'm still getting residual checks from things that I wrote, I don't know, 20 years ago.
The only reason I asked what seemed like a dopey question was because I knew people who shall remain nameless who.
Boy, there's a lot of nameless people in the show.
Yeah, I'm not. Hey, look, I'm not trying to get in trouble here.
Yeah.
But they tended to like. I never understood it. I was the same way. If I was a writer, my behind would want to be on the damn staff.
Sure.
But these particular individuals who shall remain nameless loved what they termed freedom so much. They wanted to. Okay, I want to sell this. Okay, I want to now try this. Okay, now I want to do this. And I'm going, dude, you can do both.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I think people who want freedom are people that can't get jobs. The idea of saying, I mean, I did plenty of things while I was writing, while I was on staff, and there are plenty of times if I got out early enough, I would run down to the Comedy Store to perform. So it was a crazy time. But for anybody to say they don't want to be on staff, they better be pretty well known and successful to be able to pick and choose whether they wanted to just be freelance, or sell your own show. Which that would be an exceptional situation.
Yeah, because I remember sitting across the table from these particular people who shall remain nameless and laughing at them. I'm going.
I don't know why they would do it. I mean, I would run into people. When I was working on one show, which will remain nameless, and a couple people who were not really nice people came into audition, and not that I would badmouth them, but we wouldn't hire them for it. You never know. You've got to on the way up, on the way down, you should treat people kindly and fairly, and if you don't, you have no idea what you lost, because if you don't know it, you don't know you had a chance. But I could name those people if it weren't for the fact that everybody on the show is nameless.
Yeah, well, the reason I say some of these people should remain nameless is because I recently found out that well, they don't. Okay, they don't live in the country right this moment, but they do listen to this show. Uh, so right now, somebody is in another English speaking country who is listening to this going, please, God, don't say my name. Please.
Uh, oh, I know who you're talking about.
No, you don't. You've never met these people. Moving on.
Okay.
So, as a, you know, but because everybody has things that they say because of a lack of information. They don't know what the hell they're talking about, and they're young. When I was back in the day when I was working at your place, I remember seeing comics that kind of did residencies in Las Vegas or Reno and things of that nature.
Sure.
And I said, yeah, I'll play the place, but do a residency. Are you kidding? I'm too cool and I'm 20 years old. I'm too hip. And then I found out what a person makes when they when they do a resident. All I needed to hear was what Danny Gans got for where he was it the Mirage? I think he was playing, and he had a 10-year, if I remember correctly, $140 million deal.
Yeah, Rita Rudner had her own theater,
Mm-hmm.
in Carrot Top with Kevin Kearney
Oh my
out
God!
there.
I found out what Carrot Top made, and I was like, and I like Carrot Top, but I was like, and it's hard for me not to like Carrot Top because I absolutely love Michael Baldwin, you know.
Well, the funny thing is, I remember running into Carrot Top before he was anything special in the
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia airport, and he knew me, and we talked, and all we talked about was wit.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there are people who who was the great prop comedian? Oh, I can't think of it. The guy, he was bald headed and he always wore these stupid wigs. But he was very famous as a prop comedian. He was on the $1.99 beauty
Yeah, I remember that
show. Rip Taylor.
Rip Taylor, yes.
He loved wit. In fact, not only did he love wit, he bragged about using wit's material. He said, "Oh yeah, I love wit. I use all his material all the time." Not paying wit, not telling him he was using it, but I mean, yeah, if Michael had a true business sense, he could have been a star instead of just really funny.
And for those of you that are listening, there's a comic whose stage name is the legendary Wid, and he does prop comedy. And having worked with him about 4,000 times, what he does is he essentially layers these props around stage, and he literally can just pick up two props or a prop and create a joke off of the prop or a pun off the prop immediately. And he can do it with just random things. And I've seen him create. I know what his act looked like at the time, so I could tell which ones were the ad libs and which ones were the ones that were. And it was like 35% ad libs.
And he could do 10 jokes off of one prop.
Yeah.
And the chaos that was on the stage was who he was, but at the same time, it made his act even more entertaining, and he's still doing it today. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, because I knew because there were times when I got booked at the Bristol Comedy Works, and I didn't know he was there. Well, okay, I knew he was there when I walked into the room.
Know he was there? Yeah.
As soon as I walked into the room.
I had him. I used to manage him, and I had him on Thick of the Night. And he was so nervous, and he had all his props set up just properly in this giant rolling basket. And then Robin Thicke, who was at that time about 6 years old, went on to great music success, started playing with all the props and put them all over in different. Was going crazy, and the fact is, when he went out on stage, he had no idea where each prop was, and so he did fine, but it was as chaotic as he is. There he was even more so because he was freaking out the whole time, and yet the audience didn't realize it because that's the kind of way he appears on stage.
Yeah, I saw that. And when you know what a person looks like on stage, you can tell there's something's you know
Yeah.
a shade off because when I would work with him at the Works, the original Works, he was like a machine.
Yeah.
It was like there were no gaps. He'd pick up a globe and he'd pick up a mannequin head and he goes, "It's hard to get a head in the world," and then he slammed them together, and then the next bit, then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. But when I saw that the little teeny hesitations between the bits, I knew something was wrong. It's still funny, obviously, but it wasn't pop, 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 pop that I was used to. And
yeah, and that's in comedy, and in a lot of places, music too. You're your harshest critic. You know what you didn't do perfectly. You know when you screwed up. You know when you forgot something, and you're having this conversation in your head while you're trying to talk to the audience. But the audience doesn't know that. The audience really, you think that you're not doing a good job. And I remember people mentioning it while they were on stage, and I've always said, the audience doesn't know. You're the only one who knows what your so-called perfection is. Just keep going.
I actually taught a comedy class for a while, and I would always tell the students, like you just said, the audience does not know where the punchline is.
Yeah.
So if they don't know where the punchline is, if you go to the next punchline that actually works, all they know is what you just said was the setup. They have no idea that joke didn't work. And as a comic, as you know, obviously, you'll be on stage killing, and in your mind you're thinking, and then after the show you walk up and you're going, I was off. They got 70% of me. And they're happy, but daggone well that you were off, and you're going, you were happy with that, but and I've been in cars with other comics, and we're all sitting there because usually everybody isn't off on the same show. We were all off, and I don't remember we were all fine the next show, but we're all like, yeah, the show went well, but it's like I was off. He's like, yeah, me too, man. And then we all, and the audience doesn't know, but as a performer, it annoys you until you can pick the microphone up again and kind of right the wrong.
Actually, it just recently, because of coming out of the pandemic, a lot of guys walk on the stage, and I did this thing at the Philadelphia Navy Yard where we worked outside, and the cars came in, and instead of laughter, they honked their horns, and all four people on the show, including me, all we talked about was, I have no idea if I'm going to remember my act, because it's not like you sat and worked on your act the entire time you were in quarantine because of this pandemic. And so you walked up there hoping, and you could tell everybody because you knew everybody. You could see where they lost what they were going to say, that they went on, and the audience didn't know it. And so, yeah, it's a good lesson to learn that, what you're doing on stage isn't necessarily if the audience doesn't know exactly what it's supposed to be. So I always just say, just keep going. Even if the audience isn't laughing, they may be smiling and having a good time. They just don't laugh. Early Friday shows, people didn't laugh as much because they just got out of work. They haven't had enough drinks, but they're enjoying themselves. So don't say anything about, I guess this isn't working tonight. Just keep going and going, and the second shows, of course, because everybody's obliterated, they always went well.
and if you had a really late show Saturday, you go on stage with a chair and a whip.
Yeah. I mean, we had nights where, I remember where actually, audience members think if they're a few drinks, they think they're part of the show. And they, and they think they're helping you, and all they're doing is throwing off your timing. And we had some nights. I remember. Do you remember Forrest Gregg? Eric Gregg, the baseball umpire.
Yes, yes, yeah. The
Well,
big
he
guy.
used to come to our show. He came to our shows, and I remember we had to throw out this drunk woman, and actually everybody's cheering that we're throwing her out, and Eric stands up on his chair and says, "You're out of here!" Like he was throwing a person out of the game. It was a hysterical night.
Oh God, imagine if you had a tape of that. Good Lord.
Oh yeah, there are any number of those things that happen.
Now I want to ask you about this. Now I was now obviously some things I did not have to look up regarding you, because I knew a lot of the things. But this book I did not know about. Great Failures of the Extremely Successful.
Hmm.
And that is one of the things that absolutely fascinates me because I read a lot of Gladwell, right? So
Yes.
so when I read so I've gotten to the point where I like to see where and I like to dissect the people that become really really successful because everybody just sees chapter 10, but they don't know about the first 9 chapters where they got their butt whooped.
Good point.
So when you were putting that together, I mean, was that what made you go and put this book together to do these interviews and things of that nature? Were you fascinated with how successful people navigated the failures and people that don't believe in them and you suck?
Well,
Somebody
I
took around?
remember I was on staff at one particular show, and the show wasn't successful. It lasted one season, but I got to meet Betty White. And Betty White was a regular on the show, and Marie Osmond, and who's the Wales late night talk show host?
Yeah. Craig Ferguson.
Craig Ferguson. It was really a good show, and we had some really good guests on. And Dane Cook even became a regular on that show, his first job. But somebody said to me, I said, I had to write some things, in terms of more than just these scripts. And somebody said, you have to write what you know. And just kind of as a joke, I said, I ought to write about failure because I'm very familiar with it. And I could think, because and after I said it, I thought about it, and I realized that the way it worked, things that didn't work ended up working out in different ways than you originally expected. Things that failed, whether it be relationships or it be work or the art of writing. Ernest Hemingway said the first draft of anything is shit, and because that's the way you do. You throw it out, so it's imperfect. It's not good, but later on, it leads you to something better. Anyway, so I thought about that. Anyway, I thought, well, that might be an idea. So I sat down with Betty White and I said, I have this idea about writing about how different negative things and obstacles sort of turn around. Do you mind if I talk to you about one? This is just an idea. And so I wrote that, and I just sort of kept it like in a drawer. And Larry Gelbart, who was a great writer, he was on the original Sid Caesar shows as a writer. He wrote Tootsie, Barbarians at the Gate. He wrote Oh God, kind of things. And I wrote something in Written by Magazine, which was I was a contributing editor there from the Writers Guild, and I wrote something, and I put his name in the article just because I wanted him to get in contact with me. And he got in contact with me and said, the thing that he read should be a book. And I said, well, I don't know how to write books. I don't know anybody. I don't know any publishers. He said, well, I do. I'm going to send you to my publisher. And I went there, and what he was sending me there for was a humorous thing I wrote. But I sat down with the guy. Actually, it was really funny. It was like one thing leads to another. The guy I sat down with, the publisher at Tall Press, also was the co-creator of what was Maxwell Smart's
But the TV show?
Spy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Get Smart.
Get Smart. He was with Buck Henry and Mel Brooks. He was the co-creator of it. And I said, that was so cool. And he said, I'm not looking for, yeah, this is funny, but I'm looking for something that is more motivational. Do we have anything there? And I said, well, I have an idea. And I showed him the Betty White chapter, and he said, sold. And that was it. And I had that idea. I mean, it came from sort of a joke. And there were so many things in my life. I sold a show. I wrote that first movie I wrote never got sold, even though some big guys took it around. The agent calls me and says, I think it could be there's a scene in there that would be I think a good kids TV show. I said, okay. So I wrote it up as a TV show, and we sold it to the Disney Channel. It failed as a movie. It sold it. So then at the Disney Channel, they loved it, but they wouldn't let me write the pilot. They gave it to somebody they wanted to work with, and he ruined it. And they came back to me and said, it's not going to work. You take it back. Then I wrote it up as a book, and it became the first book that I sold. I sold it to HarperCollins. And then it sold as a play, and somebody gave me $5,000 to make it into a play. And here it was, non-success, success, non-success, success, and all that stuff. So it was like I had a great belief in, you never know. Your expectations kill you. Just let it go. Just do the work. Everybody says, it's the journey. Don't worry about the result. And then I got to meet all these unbelievable people, Jane Goodall and Steve Allen and Ed Asner and Erin Brockovich and I can't even think of it. Teddy Pendergrass, and with Teddy Pendergrass's chapters, I ended up pitching that around town as a movie for Teddy. All these experiences that I had came out of really a thing where somebody said, I joked and I said, well, I'm really good at failure. It won my summer in Atlantic City when I was a kid. I had 19. I was fired 19 times in one summer as a waiter. And all I thought about was, I was hired 20 times. So, one thing led to another. And that was, the part of the thing in terms of writing the book. And I can think of a million things. I can think of it when I was in the Army and what happened. I can think of it in marriage, what happened, failing in, I flunked out of 4 colleges without a credit. So there are all types of things, and the stories that those people told me were some of the most amazing pieces of courage to talk about some of those things that happened to each of those people. So there's a very long-winded answer to say basically what you said. Yes, I thought about that, but how it happened, the only way I can talk about it is backwards. I could have never seen how that could have happened forward. I could never plan that out.
Yeah, because to me, I've always been fascinated by, I used to read a lot of, I still do, I'm saying used to, like I don't still do it, read biographies of people that have attained success, and it's amazing. It reminded me of, like, if, say, for the sake of argument, you slide down the side of a mountain and then you crawl back up to the top. Halfway up, you realize you've gotten stronger, and by the time you're standing at the top of it, you got these muscles. So when other things happen to you, you're so much stronger that things that would have crushed you before can't. They don't have the ability to. And
that's how exercise itself works naturally. You tear down muscles, you tear them up, and then they build up stronger. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the little micro tears, and then it's like a Thai boxer kicking a tree and deadening the nerve endings in the shin, so they could kick a baseball bat, or break your leg by kicking it. I'm just always fascinated by people that attain these high levels of success, and note that almost to a person, it was never this linear thing. It was always these, not even like little bumps, but these massive, huge things that happen to them. Failures. You suck. You stink. Give up. You'll never be able to sing. You stink. And then by the time they actually get to the success part, first of all, what I always thought was when people would tell me I couldn't do anything, or when they would say those things, it used to bother me. Then what I started to notice was when I proved them wrong, I enjoyed the success that I attained 10 times more. So now when people tell me I can't do anything, I know this is going to sound dopey, but it's almost like in my subconscious almost thanks them because I'm going to prove you wrong. And it's going to feel 50,000 times better when it happens because I'm proving you wrong. And that's a lot of ways I motivate myself.
See, with me, most of the people who had told me, no, you can't do that, or you won't be able to do that, I tried, and they were right. So,
yeah.
It works and it doesn't work, but there are certain things. I mean, when you're writing, sometimes, writing is very painful because you try to force it, it doesn't come out, et cetera, and then all of a sudden you hit that time where it just pours out of you and your fingers can't type fast enough. Mm. And, and you try to bottle that up and you can't. So it's really, it's always about you just keep moving and moving and moving and don't worry about the results. And if you hit obstacles, what can you learn from those obstacles? Anyway, it was a great experience, and people wanted me to write, sequels and all that stuff. And I really said, nah, that was enough of that. I did that, and that was a great experience, great stories. I'm still proud of the book, and I have enough of them so that even every time I play any place, I sit, and end up selling them. By the way, I'm back on stage again, and I'm better than I ever. This is not to be an ego thing. I'm not only better than I ever was. I'm doing something that I never did, and I'm doing something that no other comedian ever did. And I'm not going to tell you what I do, but it ended up getting me my prime competitor in the circuit around the Philadelphia area was Andy Scarpati.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Andy Scarpati's still around and still has his clubs. He became my biggest benefactor, and he ended up making me as a comedian what I am today. He was my competitor. We were not, friends. And here it is, towards now at this point in life, that he is saying to me, I want you on stage anytime you want to come to my club, and headlines me and sells me to other places too. If I would have badmouthed him in terms of, being a competitor, who knows what that would have happened, but who could ever say that your main competitor is going to be a person who's going to end up supporting you and taking you to another level that you had never been before and this late in life?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm well aware of your relationship with Andy Scarpati from back in the day, and I knew for a fact that you guys were competitors. And but I never overheard from either side trashing. You know what I mean? It was like two football teams competing, but they didn't really hate each other as people. It's like, I'm trying to win, you're trying to win. I don't hate you, but I'm trying to win.
Well, the funny thing is, I got Andy his first club. I don't know why I did it, but I brought him to John and Peter's in New Hope and introduced him to the owner, who I didn't really know, but I introduced him, and I walked out, and that was his first club. I gave him his first accountant. I gave him his first attorney. All those things at the beginning. I have no idea why I did that. It wasn't a moneymaker for me why I did it, and it all rotated back to the fact of here many, many years later, I'm walking on as a headliner in his club on a regular basis. It's pretty amazing. You never know.
Yeah, because if somebody would have said to me 30 years ago, in fact, if somebody would have said to you 30 years ago that you'd be working with Andy, I would have went, yeah, sure.
Nope.
I'd have been like, sure, buddy. Of course you will. But I think, to be honest with you, when you're part of that universe, we're all doing comedy in the '80s and all that kind of thing. It's just really good to see that everybody's in a good place now. People that it's like just people in a good place, and they can coexist and work together and do good. I think it's a beautiful thing, man. I really do. I
Yeah,
really do.
it does. You still run into people like Barney Weiss.
Hmm.
He's like 103 years old now, but still, he was a competitor, but still nice guy, regular guy. And there's a lot of people like that. They're just generally good people, and you hear it. It's many years later, and you have some sort of connection with a lot of these people, which is very neat.
I just want to let you guys all know that I feel dirty because I played all of your clubs several times, and it's time for me now to confess. Uh,
You have to confess. I know everybody played everywhere. That was it. We never had a rule. Some clubs had rules where if you play a competitor, you can't play their club.
mhm.
We never had that rule. You can play wherever you want. I can't hire you every single week. So it was a we never had a problem with that. And I would send when we would fill up,
Mhm.
the doorman would send people down to Barney's
Mhm.
to go on bananas. Um, you know, because we couldn't let them in. So here's a place where you can go see comedy.
Ironically, the only place that I never played in our area was that Going Bananas.
You're kidding.
That's I played the other one, and what was the other one? He had the other one that was a bigger one, and I forgot where it was, but he had two. I played the other one. I didn't play the one that Ben played for 17 years straight. I never played that one. You know,
I'm surprised. I thought everybody in Philly played that.
I never was actually in there because I played your place. I played the outlet. I played. There was a club. The only reason I didn't play was there was a club down the street from that place, down the street from Going Bananas, and they booked me all the time,
The
and they
Laugh House.
paid me. Yeah, they came up
Yeah.
with a lot of money. I mean, I was like, "You're kidding me." I went, "Alrighty then," and they kept bringing me back, and they paid me it was good money. And I was like, it was a part of me that was like, I just want to play Going Bananas one time because it's the only one. Literally, I played everything else. That's the one
That's
place I never got
surprising.
to.
I thought every Philly comic played there.
That was the only one I never did. But technically, I did play Going Bananas because I played the other one. But I never. That's the one room I never played. So I'm gonna have to get Barney on Facebook, tell him to reopen that, book me once, play it, and then close it back down.
I'm, I'm sure he'll do it. Barney is a very successful, very wealthy man. If he wants to do it, he can do that.
My friend Steve, I want to thank you, my friend. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, have you on the show. I appreciate it, man. The main thing is I appreciate the first gig because if I didn't do that first gig and that first gig wasn't successful, I would probably be doing something else right now. you know.
Uh, and that's. Are you still working as a comic?
Yes, not for the past. I'm waiting for my second Moderna shot. Uh,
Yeah.
and when I get my second Moderna shot, and 2 weeks after that, you will probably be seeing me.
Okay. Great. Would look forward. And anytime you want, what you should do is just tell people, and you ought to book Steve Young with me.
I will do that. But, 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 I'm going to need you to put in a good word with me with Scarpati. Yeah.
Okay, I realize my responsibility and my obligation because of the great reach of your show. I'm sure Andy has already heard this.
He will. He already commented under your picture. so, so I know he's going to hear it.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, I worked his clubs enough. You better know who the hell I am. He ain't been
Yeah,
that long.
yeah, remind him. And when he gets back, and when he puts these back, the clubs back on, he'll be meeting people.
Yes, indeed. Steve Young, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you giving me the time, my brother.
It's been a pleasure. Good luck.
All right, and I'll be seeing you out on the club circuit, my friend.
Take care.
Yeah, take care, my brother.
Bye.
Aha, I told you that was going to be fun, didn't I? Uh-huh. You're going to believe me from now on, aren't you? Much love to you. I appreciate you listening. See you next time. Take care.